Back to football camp. Okay, so we were at Big Ten Media Days last week. Thought that went, pretty well. We haven't talked since then. Then the Wager news on Friday. Then camp open, and it felt like the vibes have been pretty strong. Like players seem. Granted, it's early in camp, so you talk. Call me back in 2 weeks. But I think the sense of camaraderie and the sense of culture seems stronger than really it has maybe ever since the first year of Frost, but maybe even that, in the middle era of Bo Pelini. It just feels like people are on the same page with the coach.
I agree with that. I mean, I felt like going to Big Ten Media Days, and I wrote about it. Like, there wasn't any big, bold statement from Rule. There wasn't any singular thing that came away from it. It was just like this steady stream of culture stuff, of stuff that he believes in, of sayings, of just things that they want to be all about. And I felt like camp these last couple of days have been sort of the same thing. I mean, I was struck by MJ Sherman, who talked on Tuesday. And if you remember back in the spring and at his previous stops, he's been a really effusive, sort of reflective, deep thinker when he talks about his career and different things. On Tuesday, man, he was locked in. I mean, he said, I think 4 or 5 different times he repeated the whole idea of getting 1% better every day. I didn't want to get into, how much there was to do. It was just 1% better every day. And a lot of the other players, I thought, sort of parroted some of that stuff as well. And but it didn't feel like overly cliche. It just felt like guys were locked in. They knew what they had to do. They knew what was expected of them. And so, I think that's what you want if you're Nebraska. Like, I agree. It feels like the last few years there've been a lot of freelancers, players who have their own agendas, coaches who are maybe in some cases trying to boost their own individual profile. And you just don't get a sense of any of that. You get a sense of like, the whole one of us thing. Like, that's what this group's been all about. And I do think that's the kind of stuff that can hold up in 2 or 3 weeks when you're wondering, why am I doing this? I'm tired, school's starting. Like, that's the stuff that you fall back on that maybe can pay dividends for this team.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you make, and we'll have to see. I think there's still a lot of question on the defensive side of the ball of like effectiveness, like how well will all of this work. On offense, again, I've said this a couple different times. I have a pretty good idea of what they're going to try to do. It's just going to be a question of doing it. And I think on defense, I think they could do a lot of different things. And we'll just have to see. The defensive structure is going to be really aggressive. That's all they'll say. The reality is they're going to have a lot of stemming, which is movement before the snap, stunting, which is movement after the snap, and blitzing, which is bringing more guys than the standard number of guys. They're going to do a lot of it. They're going to move around a lot, and they're going to try to make it hard for offensive linemen to key on one thing or another. They're going to challenge offenses to figure that stuff out. It may work beautifully. You just never quite know whether it'll pan out. On the offensive side of the ball, we'll hear from those guys on Thursday. But I was impressed again. I've been pretty consistently impressed with Tony White, the defensive coordinator, just the way that he talks about things and what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, with coaching changes, usually it goes one way or the other. There's an immediate connection, everything clicks together, and they're all on the same page. Or it's first year is just kind of a struggle, and you just try to get through it. If it's the former, I mean that's I think all signs seem to be pointing toward the fact that there is a immediate chemistry here. That maybe these players, they say young people want discipline. Well, maybe these guys want to be coached up hard, and but they don't have the personnel to expect a lot out of this team. I mean, it's going to be. I really feel like this team is this season is going to be based on the chemistry and momentum, and in terms of all that, also the playmaking. You wonder 2018 if there had been stronger connection, would they have been able to, you know, take the early hits of losing the game and losing Martinez, and you know, and maybe finishing some of those games. I I really feel like this season they need it's not set up for a lot of momentum, because you go on the road for two, you come home
Yeah,
for two,
agreed.
and then here comes Jim Harbaugh's best team. It's not set up to go on a big run
No,
early.
it's not.
So I think you need to. I think for there to be any kind of momentum and early good vibrant chemistry, they got to get a split out of those first two games, and somehow you get like 3 out of 4 early, and then you can okay, here comes Michigan, and then go from there, um, because it's really it's I just feel like there has to be, and I've seen it. I've seen these first year with new coaches, where it's great. Everything makes sense. They see the field differently. Everything slows down for them, and that's what this is. This could happen this year. They're gonna be healthy, and I think they got to find momentum somewhere.
Great point. It's, and then you go after Michigan, and after the Michigan game, then you're on a short week to Illinois, which won't be easy. It's a 6-day turnaround, and I think they have a bye week after that. But yeah, the first half of the year is it's just kind of all over the place. You'd rather play your first 2 games at home against La Tech and Northern Illinois, then go play the other ones, then come back and play Michigan. Even though you might be a little beat up, you still want to get the 2 out of the gate. If they're able to, if they're able to split, that helps. If they were to win them both, which I don't anticipate, look out. It could be a much better season than any of us anticipate. Back to Big Ten Media Days from last week. Anything outside of the Husker players and Matt Rule? Anybody jump out at you, impress you? Not impress you? Anything that was of note in Indianapolis?
Go ahead, Tom.
Really, I don't know. It seemed pretty matter of fact to me. Even the commissioner, I was waiting for a big introduction, a big statement, and he just kind of ran off the teleprompter. And I think he'll be better, but no, I didn't really. I think Luke Fickell turned some heads, but other than that, I don't know, Evan. I don't know.
No, I thought it was fairly standard. PJ Fleck was out there defending some of the allegations out there about his culture from 2017, 2018. Kirk Ferentz was out there talking about gambling issues and what they can do about NIL. David Braun was out there for Northwestern talking about hazing stuff. It felt to me like it was almost hard to get into too much football conversation with so many of these programs because of all the other stuff they have going on. Everyone's asked about name, image, likeness. I thought what I heard from a lot of coaches was they would prefer that the handling of that move more in-house and get away from some of the third-party collectives that are out there right now. So I think that sort of continued a trend from the last couple of years where the things that people talk about have been the portal and NIL, about conference realignment, going to no divisions next year, bringing in USC, UCLA. That came up from a number of coaches as well. So in some ways, it just kind of feels like the main thing has sort of become the side thing until we actually get to the games. There are so many other things that people want to talk about. And I think it's been a reminder too, that like, if you're a head coach in the Big Ten, yeah, it's obviously good to know football and know it at a deep level, but there are so many other things pulling at these guys' attention than there were even 5 years ago with, again, all the other things that have come in around college sports, that like being a CEO, and I think the skill set that Matt Rule has, like that's more valuable now than it was 5 years ago. There's no question in my mind about that. And, again, we saw that play out where so much of the conversation was about stuff other than the actual football.
It's a good point. I was impressed by Luke Fickell. He had a kind of, hey, I get it that we're going to change, but it's going to be all right demeanor. He comes off well. He does not come off like a defensive coordinator. I think he's evolved in the way that he talks about the game and the way he talks about his team. I still think it's a huge risk, but they're trying. But yeah, Northwestern is Dave and Braun. As I put in my story, in my column, it's not his fault he has resting smirk face, but he does. And there was more than one occasion where he was just like, oh man, shaking his head and grinning can you believe the crap that this is? I was like, this is not the tone that you want to set. Obviously they picked him because he had nothing to do with the hazing scandal because he just got there in February, but I'm sure they would have loved to have picked someone else on some level because he did not do well. And I thought reporters gave him more grace than I anticipated. I think they took it easy on him because they don't think he should be the one answering it. And that's true, but he did not present, he was presented a very football centric vision. PJ Fleck obviously came out swinging and said what he had to say, swinging rhetorically, of course, said what he had to say and defended his program, seemed to be effective enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Jim Harbaugh, this is probably the least confused that I've seen him since he's been there. And didn't seem all that troubled by the impending 4-game suspension. And he really, really, really likes his quarterback. I think this is the most effusive he's ever been in praise of a quarterback since he's been at Michigan. So I wonder. Meanwhile, James Franklin almost acted annoyed that people were expecting more of his team. I think he's feeling it a little bit. I think he knows this is a team that could go all the way. And he was irritable, I thought, a little bit just annoyed, not quite ready to anoint this team. There's a lot of expectations around Penn State after winning the Rose Bowl last year. This, to me, is the team. If he's going to get it done, he's going to get it done in the next couple of years while he's got this kid, Drew Aller. And if he's not able to get it done, then you wonder if he can if he can bring it all the way home to the college football playoffs. So I guess we'll find out. I want to hit on conference realignment. Colorado went to the Pac-12 or went to the Big 12 last week. They went home, which was striking. There's rumblings that Arizona is going to go to the Big 12 too, which, okay, that's fine. If you pick off many more out of that league, you might be able to rebuild it with Mountain West teams. But I think the Pac-12, based on the primary TV deal being on Apple's streaming service, could be legitimately in trouble. The Big Ten may never actually get to play this. As I was thinking about this, I'm like, the Big Ten may not have a 16-team league. It might go to 20. It could, next year. I think the Pac-12 is in serious trouble because I don't know that these schools want to remain in a league where all of their games are on, Ted Lasso's over. So nobody's going to Apple for Ted Lasso anymore. The series is over. So I don't even know what you go to Apple for.
Well, the morning show was a good one, but if you like Reese Witherspoon,
Reese Witherspoon and Pac-12 football, there you go.
But no, it is over. I'm going to write about this for this Sunday, and it's they never had anything. They waited too long, and then they didn't. They had chances. Pac-12 had chances to get this done and do it right, and maybe merge, form a partnership with the Big 12, and they said no. We're the Pac-12. We're going to do it, and they just they overestimated the whole thing. I think, there's no streaming. They don't have the product for it. If it's based on subscriptions, who wants to watch Pac-12 football? Nobody. Exactly. So I'm not sure anybody wants to watch Big 12 football. but then that's going to be on ESPN Plus down the road. So all this is happening, and I can't feel sorry for them because they did it to themselves. I feel bad that there's not going to be a West Coast conference. There should be a strong. The Pac-12 had its place in college football.
You agree?
And now it's going to be gone. You hear the theories that the Big Ten has wanted Oregon and Washington all along, but they didn't want to be the bad guy who was going to break up the league. And so they're just waiting for the thing to break up. Well, it's going to break up this week. I think you're going to see I don't know why they call them the four corners, but they call them the four corners. That should be the North Carolina thing. But the four corners are going to the Big 12, and whoop-de-doo. They get Arizona, which doesn't bring anything in terms of college football.
Utah.
They are going to fortify their league, and they're going to get the same money. ESPN, I'm sure, is not happy about it. But what does it mean for the Big Ten? The only question is, do they get Stanford, Cal? Stanford, Cal are very good Big Ten fits. But hold on, the Big Ten model is changing as we speak. Here come Florida State, and I'm starting to see Clemson mentioned for the Big Ten. Don't be surprised if it's Miami, Clemson, Florida State coming to a Big Ten stadium near you. I really thought one of the things that was kind of glossed over last week in Indy was Ryan Day saying, "Yeah, if they want to move the Michigan Ohio State game earlier in the season, I'm okay with that." I mean, that should have stopped everybody in their tracks. It was just kind of a throwaway comment that's the future of this league, Sam. It's
Agreed.
It's not the Big Ten anymore. It's going to be a national conference, and you know what? Go for it. I don't care if we're gonna have the Big Two. Bring it on now. It's the old days of the Big Eight and all that stuff are long gone. The geographical conferences, these are not financial groups. These are not corporations, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're having. They're going to pay players because they can. You know, why do rock stars date supermodels? Because they can. Why do you pay players? Big Ten, SEC? Because you can. The Big 12 can't do that. So that's why there's going to be two. And then when you break up the ACC breaks itself up. Notre Dame was suddenly on an island. Well, maybe they like to be on an island, but scheduling, it becomes harder. So, and what if there's a Big Ten, SEC, Power 2 playoff? Hey, we're going to have our own national championship. Why not? It works for the NFL. So we have an NFL in college football. Who cares? People love the NFL. People love the same teams playing each other every week, and they play each other twice. It's the same teams playing all the time. It works. Why not? Why can't that work in college football? So, Notre Dame, to get a national championship, would have to join that. So they'd have to become part of the Big Ten that way. So I'm going to write about all this stuff, and I'm fascinated by it. But I'm also kind of worn out by it. It's a lot. It's all of a sudden we're going to get, Oregon. Here comes Oregon and Washington, and maybe some ACC schools. If it bothers you, I've got a little Big 8 T-shirt you can wear.
So it's possible that if the Big Ten went to a 20-team league, that this is just
24.
Well, so 24. 20,
I mean, whatever. Yeah.
They would go back to divisions. So if they
Yeah.
went to a 20-team league, they would have divisions again.
Right.
Because you could play 9 conference games, 10 teams to a side, and just imagine what it would look like. And I'm going to use my fingers here. If you had UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Northwestern, and Wisconsin.
Well,
What if that was its own conference?
Well, yeah, I mean, it could
Going
be
to division with conference within a conference.
right. Well, I'm saying it would be like the AFC and the NFC, and the Big Ten would have divisions like the AFC does. And so you'd have to do it that way, and then you play into a. Of course, if the Big Ten and SEC do that, they're not going to stop at 12 playoff bids. They're probably going to go. We need 16 at least. So,
Right.
and who cares? Who's going to sign off on all this? Fox, because they're driving the bus. They're in charge of all this stuff. It ain't the Big Ten office. It's not Tony Petitti. It's not Ted Carter. It's none of those people. It's Fox. And they invited the LA schools in. This is all TV inventory. This is the fall lineup. Who's Fox have on the fall lineup? Well, here they come, Oregon and Washington. So it's nuts. It's nuts. But you better wrap your arms around it quick, because I'm telling you, Arizona's not going to sit around. They're not going to have any money. You have to budget your athletic department, whether you're Utah or whoever, Stanford and Cal. You have to have money coming in, and I don't see money coming in on this Apple deal. I just don't see it, because when you lose USC, I'll tell you, it's crazy, and the old college football is over with. It was dead a long time ago. Now it's but if you're Nebraska, I think you love this. I mean, yeah, you're gonna need more playoff bids. If you're inviting all these people into the room, you're gonna need more playoff bids, right? But because Florida State and Clemson are going to take up some, and maybe Miami if they ever get it going. So, yeah. There we go.
I look forward to this call on Sunday.
I mean, me
The
too.
college football world is flat. We thought it was going to happen, and it's happened. Okay, I think that is our Pick Six podcast for this week. We'll be back next week to talk about week 1 of camp. Marcus Satterfield will talk tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk a little him. We'll wrap up Nebraska basketball's trip to Spain. Maybe the women's basketball's trip to Greece. So we'll have a few more things. We'll have, I think, a volleyball media day in Nebraska to discuss as well. So we will have lots to chat about then. For Evan and Tom, I'm Sam. Thanks for listening to the Big Six podcast.